Good evening, everybody. This is take 3 of the Argorist Samurai War and Peace Show Socialist Libertarian debate. I don't know if you had a chance to watch Warren's video, but you definitely should check that out. I'm going to add him, and he's coming in now.
Hey!
There we go.
Again, I must correct you, I am not a socialist.
It says Socialist 1, it says Socialist on your page. So check that out.
Oh, I should probably figure that out. I probably was at some point before for their information.
And there's a little bit of walk like a duck, quack like a duck happening that is really interesting to watch.
How so?
So I only made it through 20 minutes of your post, your video from last night where you were debating with the Cato video.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that I necessarily said anything particularly socialist.
I just here.
Huh?
We can start at it being just economically unaware. Let's go through. You want to go through your points? I'll go through.
Yeah.
I'll go through your points. We'll talk about how far we got.
Yeah, that works.
First one. People should live life as they choose as long as they don't harm others.
Agreed.
So, okay. So that's good, but I think that everybody thinks that.
Do I not think everyone thinks that?
No, do you think that everybody thinks that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same with opposition to dictatorship. I don't think that everybody's opposed to it.
No, so when I said everybody, I was speaking colloquially, obviously, not some of the more fringe of our society. But again, they're called fringe for a reason. It's because they exist sort of on the outskirts of what we would consider you and I mainstream, right? Libertarianism is a mainstream thing. Progressivism is a mainstream thing. The people who would disagree or agree that we need some sort of, almost monotheistic type dictator are on the far and fringe. So when I meant everybody, I guess I just meant the majority of people, but I can clarify that.
I think a lot of those people see government itself as the monotheistic dictator, right? The whole overarching part of it.
Oh, I mean, sure, there are some people who may see the government as a dictatorship, or at least our current government in its current form as a dictatorship. Just by very definition, that's not true.
And so, no master plan for society?
No, I don't believe there's a master plan for society. At least the way I'm defining master plan, I guess I'd have to ask what do you and the Cato Institute meant by master plan.
So I think it's all right. Let's step back a little bit.
Okay.
Just give. I'm not affiliated with the Libertarian Party at all. I'm not even registered Libertarian.
I'm curious. How does that work? Isn't the Libertarian Party made up of a bunch of libertarians? Or
Libertarian is kind of broad, man.
Very much so. This is actually why I'm really excited to do this interview. Definitely.
So there's cigarette and alcohol legislation, which you probably need if you're going to have single-payer healthcare. There are soda taxes, which you also need if you're going to have single-payer healthcare.
Wait, are those requirements of single-payer healthcare?
I would say that you've got to try to limit demand, and the only way to limit demand is to basically legislate a healthy lifestyle.
I would disagree with that. I'd say there's a lot of ways to sort of limit the demand for really serious medical necessities. There's always going to be the checkups and sort of preliminaries. But I think there's a lot of other beneficial ways in which to stymie big medical procedures without necessarily legislating it. Even so, I don't necessarily agree with taxes sort of being used as a way to social engineer over long periods of time. I think things like behavioral taxes might be good for changing some cultural things temporarily, but I don't. Huh?
Like what?
Oh, so for example, I live in Seattle where we have a sugar tax on sodas, and actually quite steep. It's like 74 cents per ounce or something like that.
Yeah, we just.
Huh?
Philadelphia.
Oh, Philadelphia. Oh, gotcha. The other New York. It's a very, very high tax. I'm going to pre-apologize for that. Yeah, so we just did it here, and it's sort of already changed a lot of. So one, it's actually caused sales and other. It's caused sales and sort of not popular beverage items to sort of soar. So, for example, it's spread out it spread out the demand for other types of beverages. So for things like healthier 100% fruit juices or the naked juices or the agwalas or sparkling waters, it sort of leveled the playing field on those. But initially, it's starting to change cultural perception, and that people are taking to a lot of these. If you go into your typical Seattle house now, you'll probably find some sort of like flavored sparkling water for it. And in lieu of soda, except for my case, what I drink, I keep soda around for that purpose. But yeah, it can sometimes change culture, but I don't sign on to it as a long term fix to problems.
And that's, can you see that as a form of subsidized corporate welfare?
Subsidized corporate welfare. How so?
Well, you've raised the tax on competition, so it's not necessarily that it has people's buying habits in a way that makes soda cost prohibitive compared to other products, right? So it's
Sort of.
not only a revenue generator for the state, but it's also a sweetheart deal for juice companies, water companies, and other related non-taxed items.
Sort of. So I guess what it did was it sort of increased. One could argue that it increased competition by making the cheaper high sugar sodas the same price as sort of the quality stuff, and so now there's a big push pull for what the dominant drink is. But the our sugar tax is something that was instituted municipally, so just by the city, and I'm given to understand the revenue from that goes to a program that benefits EBT. Well, it goes to several programs, but one of the biggest, it goes to the people who receive EBT, and allows them to double the value of their EBT dollars if they use them at farmers markets. Yeah. So you take your EBT card to the farmers market, and you take it to like a kiosk thing, and when you swipe your EBT card for $20, you can use 40 at the farmers market.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting, but
Yeah.
You can't call that a free market.
No, and I wouldn't call it a free market
Okay.
at all. Yeah, no, I wouldn't call it a free market. No, that's very much a tailored, almost social engineering project, which I think is wildly successful. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, in places like cities and smaller governments, that's, you can vote with your feet.
Yeah. Sort of. Yeah, more or less. Well, I mean, vote your feet, but your wallet has to be able to keep up. Kind of thing.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that something I'm for implementing nationwide? Probably not, because different states have different needs. But it's definitely a good thing here in a place like Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, can you expand on libertarianism? Libertarianism isn't useful.
Yeah. So what I mean by I don't find libertarianism particularly useful is I tend to look at it the same way I look at religion. I think the idea is fantastic. I totally get behind the message behind it. I just sort of disagree with the methodology. And depending on, I guess I would have to understand your particular type of libertarianism, because I've heard this a few different types. But what I mean by not useful is that I don't see the goal is to sort of maximize my personal freedom, and use my sort of the liberation of my personal capital as sort of a conduit to that, right?
Sure.
Right.
I mean, how you get your personal capital is, that's that part. That's what measures how far you can do what you can do. Things cost money.
Yeah, absolutely. Things cost money, for sure. And so what I mean by I don't find libertarianism particularly useful is that I don't think it comes close. It doesn't get us any closer to solving that issue. I don't. At least the specific type of libertarianism I've heard about.
So solving that issue? I don't understand what that
solving the issue of over institutionalization, over involvement from institutions in one's personal life. I guess I just don't see how libertarianism necessarily relieves that.
Choice.
I mean, sure, but like how choice?
What choice in everything? I mean, so later on, you talked about markets a little bit.
Yeah.
But the market isn't a thing, right? It was almost like you described it as a singular. You see it as a. You can correct me if your understanding of it is different. That it's a single monolithic thing, and it's not.
Okay.
Right. The market's. It's not a thing. It's just all the ways that you can buy all the stuff that there is ways to buy.
Okay.
A market for even a market in just take a high level real estate.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know where in Seattle you are is different from what is it, Redmond, where Microsoft is.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
These are multiple different markets. You just got to play the one that fits your wallet and you play it up.
Right. So I get. I don't. I think it's important to realize that I got the idea of the market as a single institution actually originally from libertarianism, because it's sort of talked about amongst the most prominent libertarian figures like it is an institution, right? Like not government, free market. And so usually when I hear free market talked about, I hear it talked about as a sort of institution. But there's also some evidence to suggest this, in that things within market create these institutions, right? These institutions of conglomerated unions, extra governmental trading programs and things of that sort that manifest themselves into institutions within a free market, right? So, for example, there is a national beverage association, which is a totally private formation, but it is in its very nature an institution. And so when I talk about free market, I talk about the institutions of free market, i.e., the powers that be that run the different parts of market, but that make up the market as a whole.
Yeah, I don't know that you can define the market that way.
Oh, okay.
Market is people acting, right? And there are rules. There aren't rules in the market. There's laws, right? But supply and demand might well be gravity. It's not a law.
Well, I mean, gravity is a law. It's a law of physics. Yeah.
Effectively, what economics is a physics.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a math. It's a physics with any number of variables.
Yeah. But I would caution you to remember both like gravity and supply and demand is that those aren't exactly definitive nomenclatures. Those are descriptive terms we use to describe phenomena. We need something, you sell something, we somehow get it from you. We've called that phenomena supply and demand.
But supply and demand isn't just buying and selling, right? It also controls price. What quantity of X do you have? What value changes what you can sell it.
Well, I mean, I guess I personally would argue that I don't think. I think demand can be a factor on price, but I would disagree that it's the only factor or even the most relevant on price.
So the most relevant factor on price is the value that the person buying puts on the thing that they're buying.
Right. So that's one of the the value that whatever institution has formed within market has deemed that this is worth.
Okay, so let's. This will be just a fun exercise.
Yeah. This is really working out here.
There's it's a Carolina hurricane. I live pretty close.
Okay.
It would be feasible for me to rent a U-Haul truck.
Yes.
Fill it with every case of water between here and Carolina.
Yeah.
And sell $100 cases of water when I get there.
Absolutely.
It's probably the best way to get water into that area.
How have you determined that?
Are you the first one there with water? Are you incentivizing getting water to that area?
I could be or I couldn't be, but I think that exists largely independent upon whether or not I actually do it. I.e., basically, if I
see, the thing is,
I physically can't do it.
No, well, I mean, good luck. you're going to be on the news as a price gouger rather than the first person who showed up with water.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, so that's a different institution in and of itself, the social perception, right? The price gouging again describes a phenomenon. It's not an actual thing. It's something that happens, and we put a nomenclature to that phenomenon. So the act of bringing something in and selling it is called market. The act of bringing something in and selling it for way more than it's sociologically agreed that it's worth is called price gouging.
So
And one is
I
seen
don't
as morally reprehensible given the situation.
I don't think that we've sociologically determined what it's worth.
I would
Like it,
I would say more or
it's
less
worth
we have.
it's worth considerably more
Hmm.
in a hurricane crisis situation
Oh yeah, for sure,
when I can drive to Wawa and get some.
absolutely. Um, However, one of the things that does determine price is the cost of production. Uh, if the cost of production hasn't necessarily changed, why should the price, given just the emergency?
Because the cost of production is not relevant. The cost
Mm,
of the cost of production is not relevant. The cost of production is just the cost of production. That has nothing to do with the purchase what item that they're purchasing.
I would disagree, mostly because um, again, we have a sociological understanding of price, right? The whole reason why people tend to get mad when gas prices increase to a level they're discomfortable with or get happy when they decrease to a level that they're not familiar with is because we have a genuine understanding of what things are reasonably priced based on the given time, cost of inflation, etc., things like that. So if for no absolute reason the cost of a water bottle were to go from $1 to $68, that would understandably put a lot of people not at ease. And particularly given it's in a context where a bunch of people have taken a significant hit to their personal capital, um, I don't see. And this sort of ties back into what I mean. I don't find libertarianism particularly useful. In this particular regard, um, the personal capital has been affected, and yet the price has increased, but it didn't really fix the liberty problem, the personal responsibility problem. Um,
What
it's sort of, in fact, it's sort of tied up more capital, I guess, in that regard.
I'm just trying to get people water.
Right, and that's perfectly fine. But I don't think the libertarian platform is to get people water. It's to sort of maximize individual liberty and ability to spend one money how one chooses. I don't see how price gouging when you're the only water source around will allow for that to
Well, one, you won't be the only source around for very long.
happen. Right, but it is for now. In this scenario, it's the only source around.
And for now, so
Yeah.
there are also associated costs with distributing water, right? There's associated
Oh
costs
yeah.
with the this off of work, the U-Haul truck that you have to rent, the labor to move it,
Absolutely.
you tow a boat down with you so you can take it to people who really, really need it.
Definitely.
Boat delivery water is $200 a case.
Yes.
You're trapped on a roof.
Yes.
Probably pay the $200. And I mean, I don't know what I'm donating $2, $3, $4, $5 at a time at a grocery store, if not to subsidize the higher prices of delivering goods to horrifically damaged areas.
Mm-hmm. I again, I guess I just don't see how that sort of ties into the libertarian platform. Again, I understand you can pay more for it unless you can't, and it is not the only water source around, unless it is, which is the case for some people. And so again, I don't see how libertarianism particularly fixes that problem of personal autonomy. You're still largely dependent upon something, and now even more so than you would have been in just sort of the general services provided by your government.
Okay, so let's try to go someplace else with it.
Oh, yeah,
We'll do another exercise.
definitely.
So we talked about IP, intellectual property.
Yeah, I was curious about that.
So right now, are you familiar with Mylan and the EpiPen?
No.
So Mylan Pharmaceuticals
Mm-hmm.
owns the patent for the EpiPen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, patents are perfectly constitutional, but I think you can safely make a point that 7 years in 1787 time is maybe 18 months in 2018,
Mm-hmm.
or
right.
approximating that.
Absolutely.
So the cost of a branded EpiPen,
Mm.
once Island bought the patent went up to $600.
Wow.
It was outrage and people were upset and whatever. But
Right.
here's Island. They've got, patent law and IP is also a form of corporate welfare.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Now they're the only ones that are allowed to produce it under penalty.
Right.
They released a generic version for $200,
Oh
which
wow.
is better.
Yeah.
But an EpiPen is effectively $10 worth of insulin
Yeah. Easily. Yeah.
and plastic parts that you can source for pennies.
Absolutely.
So there's IP and I think probably 18 months is pretty good.
Yeah.
But you want to make EpiPens in your house and sell them for, if you're generous and you want to sell them for whatever it is that you want to sell them for, then hey, go for it.
Right.
And if you sold it for $100,
Mm.
you've not only cut that budget line item in half for schools and hospitals and places that need to keep them on site, but you've effectively made open carry peanut butter sandwiches possible.
That's good. I like that. Definitely.
So that it isn't what, I mean, you need to have sufficient imagination to
Yeah.
look at something and see what you could do without it. It's not that libertarianism is looking to, all right, here's the plan. This is what we're doing. This is going to work.
Right.
Because it's not.
Right. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. I still don't stay on one side or the other in intellectual property. Again, my only for sure ground when it comes to intellectual property is I think there should be none for academic reasons. But that's pretty compelling. I like that. I don't have a particular side, yay or nay for things like that, but definitely, I feel that. Unfortunately, I'm probably not going to be very useful in that particular conversation headset because I don't know a lot about intellectual property laws. I just know it's a thing, and I actually want to know the libertarian stance on it more or less. So, yeah, yeah, or your stance on it as a
I don't know
libertarian.
what I could say a libertarian sense on anything. Just think about what you can do without it.
Right, right,
What would you need to get rid of to to enable you to do something?
right. Exactly. Um, yeah, definitely. So, did you have other objections to the video I made last night?
Um, uh, Market doesn't have rules. Market has laws. The market doesn't strong arm. The market can't strong arm. It has no ability to strong
I would have to strongly disagree with you there.
Okay.
So Ben White, the guy who introduced us, likes this motto that taxation is theft. And I disagree that taxation is theft, but I will agree with everyone by the strictest legal definition. Taxation is a form of extortion. Now, if you cite that extortion, if you agree with my definition of extortion, that it has a sort of negative consequence for not adhering to a something, right, or to paying a something, that I consider that just as strong arming as the government. So, for an example, while it's a government law that I may go to jail for squatting, the market placed that law there. And if I don't pay my rent, I lose my house, which is a force, right? I require a place to live as a human being. Um, it's one of the things we deem sociologically necessary. And so I feel my personal outlook on it is that the market in and of itself and the way it conducts business has strict rules. So, for example, why can't I steal from Walmart? Um, Theft is partially a crime, but so is theft and also Walmart policy. Now, it's Walmart's choice to prosecute the crime of stealing, but that is an example of market having rules.
I don't know what Walmart's policy on theft is.
So you obviously can't steal from Walmart. That's there. They will prosecute, so they will use the government to prosecute you for a crime that happened to them. But additionally, you can't haggle prices at Walmart, right? The prices are fixed. But there are other places where you can totally haggle the price. And so by strong arming and laws, I mean things like that. There are things that have very real consequences that exist in the free market that if I don't pay them, I will face just as serious consequences as jail, if not more so.
So that's considering that the government has a monopoly on courts.
On what?
Right? This is what on the courts.
Oh,
Right? There's no private court.
yeah,
I mean, you
absolutely.
could go to arbitration and whatnot, and there's really good arguments for privatizing the court system. really interesting articles on how to.
Okay.
What other recourse does Walmart have?
It could sort of deal with it itself. It could employ its own security. BNSF does it. Uh, I can't think of any other institutions that do it, but I know BNSF does it. I know Amazon has its own sort of police department, at least here in Seattle, where it's headquartered. So they have methods of handling sort of their own policy. But again, not necessarily the result of breaking a Walmart policy, but the fact that Walmart or a place like Walmart and markets have a policy is a form of a market rule or market law.
I mean, theft is theft, right?
Well, absolutely. But Walmart makes the decision on whether or not to prosecute specific kinds of theft. It doesn't necessarily have to, but does anyway. So in that particular situation, that's a law I violated against Walmart, not particularly my government. But the use of my government is is acting upon Walmart's behalf, rightly so, by the way.
Okay, so
yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying that the rules that exist in market are inherently bad. I'm just saying they're there.
Okay, I mean that's not. I don't know that we've set a market rule.
So
I can't imagine.
For example, if the government were to authorize theft, if theft were to certainly become decriminalized, then do you believe that Walmart will have a policy that allows you to take things from its store? Does Walmart's policy on stealing, is that contingent upon the government's law on stealing or theft? Right. I guess right. And so again, I'm not arguing these rules of participating in certain markets are bad. I'm just saying they exist.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about rights.
Okay.
For a little bit, and I think that'll give us a little bit more. Give me a little bit better understanding.
Definitely.
You said that rights are given to you by the government.
Yes.
This is going to be awesome. Just explain that.
It is. I don't have any evidence that not laws that rights come from somewhere else. I don't have any evidence to support that claim. I'm an atheist, so by my very nature, I don't believe that my laws came from a god. There's no evidence to suggest that rights come from gods. There's only evidence to suggest that a paper said that it came from a god, but the roots of sort of the rights is less important than the document that allows one to exercise them. So, for example, you as a person could believe that your rights have come from a god, that your right to own private property has come from a god. If you go to North Korea, you will quickly learn that is not the case.
No, your rights don't change.
They do.
Right? Natural rights don't change. That's why it's not like you go to North Korea and it's. We look at that and it's an atrocity when your rights are violated. It's natural rights are natural rights are natural rights, no matter where you are, no matter who you are.
Well, maybe we're defining natural in two different ways. When someone says natural rights are things that are intrinsic and things that exist independent of other forces acting upon them. I can't find a rights bone in my body that occurs naturally, and I don't have any reason to believe that it's natural to a point. So, for example, trees are natural things. They will grow here. They will grow in North Korea. I produce endorphins. That's a natural thing. I will produce endorphins here. I will produce endorphins in North Korea. Things like my right to free speech isn't natural. That's something protected and issued to me by my governing document. And I can test this by going to another place where it's not and seeing how available that is. And if it proves to be unavailable, then it can't possibly be intrinsic.
So, can you lose your rights?
Can you lose them? Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like easily?
Yeah.
What?
Well, I don't know if I'd say easily. So, for example, going to jail. Going to jail you suspend some of your rights, some of which you don't get back when you get out of jail. For example, the right to vote doesn't come back to you after you get out of jail if you're a convicted felon. You lose your rights in certain countries that exile. Our Constitution deems the right to life inalienable. However, the state has a process by which it can kill you. But, right, which I think you and I both disagree with the death penalty. I think that's
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't. You can't trust the state. It's a really challenging subject, and I've been on both sides of it.
Same. Since 1970, the death penalty has killed 117 people. And why I like the eye for an eye and sort of it taps into my more barbaric sort of, get 'em kind of attitude. I just can't trust the state with something like murder. I can't. And plus, because I am not at all a constitutional literalist. Not as I can't say I'm not at all. But with something like the right to life is unalienable, it's pretty broad. I.e., the government can't kill you, but it does. I disagree with that. Yeah.
That's okay. That's reasonable. That's the only reason to hold it accountable.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Even governments that don't have that. Well, I don't want to.
Right. Yeah, going back, I just have no evidence to support that my rights will happen regardless of what context I'm in.
Well,
They will change depending on where I am, which by almost definition makes them unnatural.
I can tell that too. So one of the things I think you're looking for a libertarian government to do something, and it's not going to.
Right. But I'm not looking for a liberty. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm not looking for the libertarian government to do anything. Mostly because I don't exactly know what a libertarian government would look like. The 2 points are almost axiomatically opposite, unless you're an anarcho-communist libertarian or a libertarian socialist, in which case.
I've never. I think anarcho-communism is somebody's in charge.
Well,
and when you're on the wrong end of the gun and it's your stuff, it's always fascism.
Here's a question I have too. So how libertarian or how are you in particular defining words like freedom and individual liberty?
So are you familiar with the non-aggression principle?
Yes.
So let's start there. And
okay.
There are libertarians that don't buy it. I think like Austin Peterson said that that's not a deal breaker.
Right.
He's Austin.
Right.
But don't aggress against other people. Go to town. You're not aggressing against people by rolling into a flood area with 200 acres of water.
Okay. Now, how are you defining aggression?
Physical aggression.
Oh, so it has to only be physical.
Fraud, violence. Fraud and violence, I think, are the two big ones.
Okay. Then yeah, I guess I don't see how libertarian remedies the problem of non-aggression. I don't see how. You're familiar with Noam Chomsky, yes?
Sure.
He is a libertarian socialist. Right.
I wouldn't hyphenate Chomsky, but go ahead.
So the reason he's classified as libertarian socialist, and this is sort of just what I picked up from libertarianism, is that it addresses a very serious problem: the over involvement of institutions in my personal life, right, or in a personal life. Is that fair to say? So, but however, in American style libertarianism in particular, and sort of this neo-libertarianism we've seen in the rise of the 1970s, it tends to only address one institution, and that's the government. But
right.
Depending on because it depends on the libertarian you talk to on how they choose to express freedom or things like liberty, the government is not my biggest barrier to liberty. It just isn't. At least if it's talking about the liberation of my personal capital, it's not at all the barrier to my. I mean, it is a little bit. It ties up a little bit of my capital, but not enough to be wildly concerned. Noam Chomsky's sort of outlook of libertarianism is that he believes that what libertarians in America says about the free market, he believes that, but for the government instead. I.e., there should be um, there should be something to check the institution of market, and that thing should be government. Libertarians in America tend to fall more. There should be something to check the institution of government, and that should be market.
So there is an institution to check the institution. Well, I thought we decided that market's not an institution in itself.
I don't agree with that. It very much looks and feels and sort of acts like an institution. So I can't help but to identify it as.
So the real estate, the market for real estate is similar to the market for, say, comic books, is similar for the market for vegetables, is similar to the market for pharmaceuticals.
Well, I don't think. Well, one, I don't think similarity is a requirement to be an institution. For example, nonprofits and um, you know, for example, nonprofits and governments and schools and conglomerates are all institutions, but they don't look alike. So I don't think similarity is a requirement for an institution. But additionally, they
Wait,
right.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
So I don't think similarity is a requirement to be an institution. Um, Things don't have to be similar for them to exist as institutions. So you are citing a bunch of things in an institution that is a free market, and I'm talking about institution not in we are an institute, but in the institution of sort of a hierarchical system of operation, right? So it's not just the free market. Sometimes just me and you know, selling and buying things. However, there are oftentimes I have to interact with some sort of institution like the American Beverage Association. Um, that happens when I buy a soda, or in particular in Seattle when I pay the soda tax. Um, so there are institutions within an institution that is free market. When I served in the Navy,
What do those institutions do?
huh?
What do those institutions do?
That depends on the institution.
All right. Well, take the beverage institutions, the beverage whatever conglomerate, or the American Medical Association, or
Okay.
they're
So,
just lobby groups.
okay. So if I go with the American Beverage Association, its first and foremost goal is to sort of market the product of sugary drinks. That's what they do. Their job is to try to sell you that. But they also do certain things like, back political candidates. They support PSAs. They fund social programs and things of that sort related around sugar education and stuff like that. They provide lobbying services on their behalf and the behalf of all their vendors. They organize things. They're an institution. Um, but all that's not in that those aren't intrinsic characteristics of all institutions. Some institutions, like the school I attend, is an institution, but it does things like educate, and it rakes in a lot of money from football, and it does really different things, but it's still nonetheless an institution.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you go to a public school or a private school or.
I go to public.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's even a bigger institution, right? Then that's like public education as a whole, separate.
Yeah. That's a different institution, but it looks nothing like other institutions.
That's not a market solution.
No, I didn't say it was one.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's a form of government institution. And arguably, right, the government in itself is an institution because it has a Congress and official people. But several pieces within sort of a government operate too, and that's how I feel kind of how you're describing free market, in that we have a bunch of these institutions within the government, right? We have a law institution, we have a justice institution, education institution, services, actual governance, military, policing, things of that sort. But they all exist under a sort of umbrella institution. That institution is called government. Now, what it may look like at the top of its hierarchy and its upper echelons can change. It can alter, it can reduce, it can increase, but it will forever be an institution. And it's sort of the same for markets.
But markets are flat, right? Markets don't exert any control over you you give any more control than you give them.
I have to strongly disagree. I have to wildly disagree. For example, basic human necessities, right? Those are your food, water, shelter, etc. Um, However, in order to maintain those things, I first require some employment. Now, if I'm lucky enough to get a job with the government, then the market is largely left out of it. However, there are significant.
1 second.
Oh yeah,
If you're lucky enough to get a job with the government,
yes.
wouldn't you prefer something productive?
How is it not productive?
How is it productive? Government doesn't produce anything. Government takes from what people already have and redistributes it out. It's completely unproductive. It's counterproductive.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. So I don't know what the government of Philadelphia is like, but governments do way more than just collect taxes. If they did, the government would be a lot cheaper organization to run. King County, for example, I can think just local. Our government runs over 1,100 bus routes, 6 light rail lines, an international airport, a clean potable water distribution system, a fire, a police department, 2 public hospitals, and the state's only Tier 1 trauma center. We run an entire public health division that's dedicated to tracking and eliminating illnesses and diseases that are found and spread throughout King County. The governments do a lot. They are not just reducing the singularity of just taking money and giving it to other people. They do a significant more amount of stuff than that. Arguably, if you're talking specifically about welfare, that's actually a tiny portion of what they do. Oh man, I'm sorry. That's
Do those things have value?
yes, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
And would you pay for them on a free market?
Yes. Well, hold on. Yes, I would.
Okay. Then how is government necessary?
One, because it does a significantly better job than I can. For example, things like epidemiology. Are you familiar with epidemiology?
No, go ahead.
Is there a heavy market for epidemiology? You okay? Okay, there you go. There's not a gigantic market for epidemiology. However, epidemiology serves a very severe purpose. Epidemiologists track, study, and determine the spread of illnesses through a given area and try to administer cures in the most equitable way possible. Right. So back in the 1990s, this whole "Hey, senior citizens, come get your flu shots first" thing was a direct result of epidemiological research. That's something I can help pay for. That is not something I can afford myself. By something I can help pay for, I mean me and the other 300 million people in King County come together to operate the system. However, for me to pay one epidemiologist to do a quarter of the work, I would have to make at least 6 figures. So some of the things I'm absolutely willing to pay for, but we're just wildly out of my means, giving what the market considers fair for my rate of work.
Well, so just another law of the market. Profit's not normal.
What do you mean?
Profit is not normal. Profit is a signal that something's wrong. Profit is a signal that there needs to be more supply of something than the demand is too high. There needs to be more supply. Right? So what barriers to become an epidemiologist? What barriers are there to become an epidemiologist could be removed if you could take a correspondence course, or if you could, are there epidemiologists in other countries that don't deal with those regulations? Like people flying to India for operations.
Wait, sorry, I think I kind of lost you. Okay, so we were talking about I use epidemiology as an example of something that I would like to pay for without the government, but I physically can't.
Yep.
How did that connect to the other things? I'm so sorry, I got lost and confused by that.
So if you physically can't pay for it because it's expensive, right?
Yes.
Well, there's not enough epidemiologists.
Yes. Well, not just that, but it's not a particularly interesting field to a significant number of people.
Maybe epidemiology association needs to market it.
I don't think there is an epidemiological association. I think
I'm sure, I'm Googling. I'm sure there is.
I think we just might fall into maybe some sort of medical association, but I mean, there might be. I could totally be wrong about that. And they could do a better job of marketing it. But there's some market and whether or not people catch on to it or exist wildly independent of each other sometimes. And I think epidemiology is one of those things where it will exist independently. I can tell you about epidemiology till I'm blue in the face, but if you do not want to crawl into homeless people's tents to ask them how they have sex for the purposes of getting STD information, you're not going to want to do it. Plain and simple.
Okay, then I mean that's a
Yeah.
But now, when you come to, if you want to take those edge cases at the bottom,
Yes.
I think that those edge cases at the bottom are really important to address.
Okay.
First, you've got two types, right? You've got unfortunate, and you've got bad choices.
I would have to disagree.
Okay.
I would say that's a bit. I have to call it a bit of a false dichotomy. There's a lot of situations in which someone could take a severe hit to their capital or their ability to move economically. There's death of a family, loss of half of income. There's missing limbs, sickness, illness, disease. There's loss of place to live, loss of communication. There's I think there's a slurry of things that could happen to cause someone to lose their capital.
We didn't have audio problems, right? You heard me say unfortunate and poor choices, right? Like there's two. Oh, that explains a lot.
Oh, wait, there you go. Okay, I hear you. I don't know what you did, but yeah. Yeah, sorry about
that. There's two, right? There's unfortunate circumstances, and then there's bad choices.
Yes.
Right. So we could talk about there's a market for charity. There's a free market. There's completely a free market for charity.
Absolutely.
In fact, the free market for charity is more effective than government.
That's it.
It's directed by Wounded Warrior.
Yes.
Right. We'll take unfortunate and bad choices at the same time.
Yes, definitely. I like it.
It's got no reason to exist. It shouldn't exist.
Right.
I mean, forgetting that standing army is unconstitutional, whatever. Like these things are there.
They're there.
Things.
Right.
Not care adequately for these people, and do it so badly that somebody needs to set up a charity to do it.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah.
But do you remember when they found fraud in the Wounded Warrior Project?
I do not.
The Wounded Warrior Project was accused of fraud, and that money dried up like that.
Jesus.
The market corrects infinitely more than government ever could.
For some things, definitely. For other things, I no. I can't. I don't agree with that. Even a little bit. So, for example, in a world where charities already exist, what's holding them back from just providing universal health care to everybody?
I'm sorry. Go ahead and just go through that one more time.
So the market is very good at sort of correcting itself. I guess I would have to posit, and that charity is sort of the best way forward and do a better job of providing a service than the government can. And in some cases, I believe that's absolutely the case. But in other cases, I'd have to posit, in a context in which charities already exist to a large capacity, why are they not providing things like universal health care or other things that we would expect from a government?
I wouldn't expect universal health care from the government. I damn sure don't want it.
Oh, I mean, that's fair, but some people do. And why would it? Why in a world where it can be provided by the free market, why is it not?
I don't think it can be. Universal health care can't be provided at all. At least not in any way that you would actually.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear this
I mean,
because
the National
it's being
Health
provided
Service,
currently.
yeah, but the National Health Service just murdered 2 little kids this year.
Oh, okay. So that's one particular type of universal healthcare. But also, need I remind you, a lot of people have died in, for example, the Bahamas, totally unregulated healthcare market. India's almost unregulated healthcare market kills people constantly due to medical malpractice, cutting corners, things of that sort. Um, but I would posit that the NHS has had significantly better health outcomes than a lot of other even established nations or even some nations with free healthcare. For example, they have a better health outcome rate than Hong Kong's healthcare system. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. I recognize that universal healthcare systems are not free. By free and universal, I mean free of the point of use, and I mean free that they stand at the ready to service if needed. But I would never stand behind something like an NHS system in which the doctors, hospitals, clinics, etc. are all owned by the government. There's multiple ways to implement universal healthcare because the term universal just means universally provided and available, not wholly owned. Those are two different things. England happens to have a wholly owned universal health system, but France happens to have an almost totally private universal healthcare system.
So you've got private interests. How much do you lose in corruption?
Huh?
How much do you lose in corruption? Just waste, fraud, and abuse.
In healthcare or just in general?
Sure. Well, I mean, in any instance that's, well, the government controls it, but it's pseudo-private.
Well, so again, I guess I don't know what you're asking. Do you see waste, fraud, and abuse in only healthcare system where the government has a hand?
Oh, no, I see waste, fraud, and abuse in every possible industry that the government dicks around in.
But I would also argue that there are also waste, fraud, and abuse that exist for governmental. Waste, fraud, and abuse can happen in a totally free, untouched market of some sort. And in fact, I would argue that it does quite frequently.
And how does the market? But the market corrects
things. Sometimes it doesn't. For example, take Hong Kong's private housing. For low-income people, there is no incentive to correct that. People will continue to live in the crappy hovels they do for as long as they do and are not allowed to complain much about it. Then there's really no incentive to improve them. Yeah, yeah.
So
I have seen instances where the market has corrected itself. I have also seen some instances where it took the government to step in and absolutely correct the market, which leads, huh?
Like bailouts?
No, 13th Amendments, desegregated lunch counters, things of that sort.
That wasn't. Those weren't. That wasn't the market.
That was the market.
No, it was not. Those were Jim Crow laws. That was the state.
Yeah, but so here's the thing, right? So one, people in the North also, where they didn't have Jim Crow, also desegregated counters. So segregation and racism exist independent of whether or not there's a law about it. And remember, these Jim Crow laws were a product of the market. They said, hey, government, do this because this is how we run our businesses to run most efficiently. And the government responding to the market said yes, and then that became Jim Crow laws. It's true that capitalism is self-regulating when it comes to something like race that would have been demonstrated in things like the slave trade, like desegregating lunch counters, or there would have been some sort of large revolt, for at least from the large amount of business owners that existed that had segregated lunch counters. You don't necessarily hear people going, "Hey, we need to tell the government to stop making us separate our lunch counters." There's no evidence for that the market would have corrected itself then.
If you want customers, that's a good reason to desegregate your lunch counters.
No, it's not. Especially when the black customers don't actually have any money, or have less, or visit frequently, or are harassed out. Right? You don't need to control something that other people are going to control for you, be it public or private. I could own a business today and I'm still not selling things to Nazis. It's just not happening. Yeah,
So you are completely behind right to exclude.
no, not at all.
So you wouldn't sell things to Nazis, but other people have to sell things to people.
I mean,
that
we'll put it this way: I wouldn't like to sell things to Nazis. But however, I wouldn't necessarily say right to exclude based on when it comes to operation and market based on any sort of like personal thing. Nazis and things like gay people are different, and that gay people have no intrinsic harm about them. They're just homosexuals, whereas Nazis have views that are the antithesis to what we consider values, and a direct attack, and they directly attack things like personal freedom, which stand at odds with how we, as a society, have chosen to operate.
So I think you can exclude red-headed, left-handed people if you want.
That's fair. I would disagree. But
yeah, it's foolish if you're in business to make money, and I mean, maybe you can afford to exclude people, maybe you can't, but
definitely. Where I land on exclusionary is that neither the free market nor things like equality or equal treatment are laws. They are just both deeply held values, at least constitutionally speaking. However, I have no evidence to suggest that free market is the pinnacle of the American value system, and have more evidence to suggest that things like equality are. And so I would first and foremost, if I'm going to enact any sort of legislation regarding on how people can react to either the free market or interact with either the free market or equal treatment of people, I would have to side with the equality, considering there's more evidence to suggest that that's a more important American value than a free market.
Yeah, I definitely disagree.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's going to be per the norm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So do I have a right to discriminate against you because you're a Nazi? Sure. Do I have a right to discriminate against you because you're white? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think either is fine.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I'll just go to do we have to clarify that I'm not a Nazi?
No, we don't. If you were a Nazi, I have a feeling I would have picked up on it. Nazis have a telltale. Yeah.
There's so many. Everybody has a value scale.
Yes.
Either implicitly or explicitly, and this is the thing with the market.
Absolutely.
It's 10:30. I think that we should both wrap up a little bit, and then 10:30 my end.
Oh, okay, got you. Oh, God. I was like, wait, because it gets dark in Seattle crazy early in the winter, so, or in the cold months. Yeah, it's been dark for like 2 or 3 hours.
Already dark?
Oh, yeah, it's been dark for about 2 or 3 hours. The sun goes down around 5 and doesn't come up again until 9 or so.
That's early.
Really far north.
Like I'm still getting at least 6:30, 7 o'clock.
Oh, wow. Gotcha.
Everybody has a value scale.
Definitely.
You have to create some kind of hierarchy of all the things involved in what you want to purchase, right? Mm-hmm. There's price, quality, and I don't know, you name it.
Right.
People in the market that can afford to make, I don't know, race, sexuality, like whatever, a factor that value scale, pay a penalty. They definitely pay a penalty. They pay more unless they can come up with some little internal market of their own that they exclude everybody from, which is also fine. But I'm not going to shop there. In fact, I wish they would.
Sure. Again, I would wildly disagree. There are some places in America, unfortunately, where we don't have the ability to choose between multiple outlets of receiving provisions. I personally grew up in a town where the only place in the entire town to buy something was Walmart. There were no more small businesses anyway because they all got shut down by the Walmart. And so we sort of had to rely on these particular things. There are other things that exist but may not necessarily be in our price range, which again sort of restricts us, which is the issue I think libertarianism is trying to address.
Oh, I don't know. The things that are libertarianism is trying to address things that aren't in your price range.
No, libertarianism is trying to address my inability to sort of live my life the way I see fit and the freedom of my personal capital, or the liberation of my personal capital. And those are direct hindrance to both of those things. So my objections. Oh, you're right. So my objections are this. Again, I don't find libertarianism to be a bad idea. I just don't uh, understand how it's a viable methodology for reaching the goals that are trying to be reached. If the goal is maximum freedom for the individual, the ability to sort of have more control of how fluid your capital is according to your own value standard, um, libertarianism may address one barrier to that for some people, not even for all people. It may address one barrier, but it doesn't address the other barriers that exist, which keep my capital very much under chains. And so that's why I don't necessarily find it particularly useful.
Okay, so
Yeah.
What confused me?
Okay, I'm sorry. It's probably my bad.
Is like I understand that. I think you lack sufficient imagination. I started 2 businesses on this call. I delivered water to a dangerous area to deliver water,
Yeah.
albeit with an escalated cost.
Absolutely.
Moved government from healthcare manufacturing and got EpiPens to schools for 1/6 of the price that they can buy them now.
Theoretically, you did those things, yes.
Yeah, that's so that right. That's it. That's the market. That's there's always going to be somebody wanting to take down Walmart. There's always going to be somebody wanting to take down Amazon. There's always going to be somebody wanting to break into pharma. These barriers, these protections, these whatever, anything that you look where government touches business is corporate welfare, is absolutely corporate. And I'll give you a couple minutes to sum up. And
Gotcha. Well, I would have to strongly disagree. I find that there are obvious overt examples of corporate welfare. There are even some more subtle ones. But there are things in which that are just not. That's just not the case. Or those things. Those things exist solely for the purposes of themselves. I think you described it best. There's always going to be these things. There's always going to be some way in which I'm forced to spend my money. You told me you said I lack imagination. You're probably partially right. Unfortunately, I have to live in reality where I recognize I don't have the capital, nor at this point the means to obtain the capital in order to do those things. Right, to make the EpiPen cost reduced down to $1 or $100. But I recognize there are a group of people that can, and there are a group of people that do. And whether or not they do it efficiently is an entirely different argument. Whether or not they do it to a point where I can actually make that a reality for myself and people like me. I don't find libertarianism to be particularly bad. I think you said it best yourself. I don't find it to actually change anything. The need for water hasn't gone away. The requirement to spend money on water hasn't gone away. The only difference is it's gone up significantly. That's the only change. And so I don't find libertarianism to particularly serve a particular.
faster deployment.
Huh?
Faster deployment.
Sometimes. I would argue that the $16 billion nuclear powered aircraft carrier can get a shipment of TVs through the Suez Canal faster than the MMRs. Particularly around the Horn of Yemen.
Well, I'm not trying TVs through the Suez or
Definitely.
trying to get water from Philadelphia to North Carolina.
Right. So
That myself. Right. That's it's basically the Uber of water with a hazard pay.
Definitely. So again, the exact same thing we have now, but slightly more expensive. Right? Yeah. That's
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This was an absolute pleasure.
All right. Maybe we'll talk again.
Definitely. I hope so. You were awesome, actually. And you're really, really smart.
Have a great night.
You too. Cheers.